Welcome to this tutorial on Introduction to Python. And in this section, we will talk about the Python programming language, Integrated Development Environment IDE, Python 2 version versus Python 3, installing Python using the Anaconda distribution. So Python is a very simple language which is easier to learn, and it has an elegant syntax, so it allows us to think about the problem or solution rather than focusing on the syntax. Next, Python is a high-level interpreted language. Programming languages generally fall into one of the two categories: interpreted and compiled languages. So what is the difference between compiled languages and interpreted languages? A compiler converts a high-level language code such as Java, C, or Python to machine code. So here we have a compiler that converts the source code or the high-level language code, code that is in high-level language into machine code. And the compiler translates the code all at once. So all the statements in a program are translated at once, and the processor then executes upon the machine language that the compiler has produced. So here we have the processor that executes the machine code. Now, for example, if you have to make any changes to the code that has already been compiled, say for example you have added a new statement in the existing code, in that case the entire program will need to be recompiled. So the process of compilation is slow, but machine code can be executed quickly. And examples of compiled languages are C, and we have COBOL and BASIC. Coming to interpreted languages, an interpreter translates code into machine code. So it translates code into machine code, but in this case we have an interpreter that does this job. So what is the difference between a compiler and an interpreter? The interpreter translates code instruction by instruction. So in your source code, it goes to the first statement and then it translates into machine code. The next step, and in the next step, the CPU executes each instruction. The CPU executes this instruction. So statement 1 has been translated into machine code by the interpreter, and this is executed by the CPU. Next, the interpreter translates the second statement in your program to machine code, and the CPU executes that particular instruction. So, interpreted code will show an error as soon as it hits a problem. So, it is easier to debug than compiled code. In case of compiled languages, the bugs are reported after the entire program has been compiled. So, since an interpreter translates code into machine code instruction by instruction, they are much slower to execute than the same program that has been completely compiled. However, interpreted languages have usefulness in areas where speed doesn't matter. Say, for example, you can use it for debugging or for training purposes. And examples of interpreted languages include Python, Ruby, Perl. So these are some of the examples for compiled and interpreted languages. Now let's get back to where we have left, Python. And Python is an object-oriented language. And it is a free and open source software. You can freely use and distribute Python even for commercial use. Not only can you use and distribute software written in it, you can even make changes to the Python's source code. Next, Python is portable. We can move Python programs from one platform to another and run it without any changes. It runs seamlessly on almost all platforms including Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. Python standard library is very extensive, offering a wide range of facilities. Python provides standardized solution for many problems that occur in everyday programming, and bulk of the library is very portable. Next, Python has a great community that provides support through mailing lists, user contributed documentation, and a very active Stack Overflow